Hey, I'm Decathlon Gamer. Welcome back to PCM24 Yeti. It's episode number 6. We're into the 2025 season. It's January the 1st. Let's go over the pool updates and some things that I've learned because with the World Database, they really nerf the rapid progression. Because of the system the way it is, you see a lot more development than you see in a normal playthrough that doesn't have that nerfed settings. A lot of nations found advances in that first season. So much so that 23 nations have leveled up in one manner or another, popularity or training, or both, and in many cases by multiple points. 11 nations have improved their training structure. 19 nations have improved their popularity, for a total 33 popularity points. The smallest nation to see a gain was Brazil. They were a 2-1 nation. They're now a 3-1 nation, so they did gain 1 popularity point. And I have rebalanced the potential pool. Brazil is no longer in the popularity 2 America's pool. It's now in the popularity 3 America's pool. I haven't unlocked it yet. Now, if I had already unlocked Brazil and it had gained that point, I would retain Brazil, even if I hadn't unlocked 3s yet. Once a nation is unlocked, that will remain so for the duration of the series. One big surprise for me, and it may have just been human error or something new added this year. I'll be keeping an eye on it in future seasons to see if it's going to be repeated at some point, but the Slovak Republic lost a training point. Again, I may have just recorded it wrong and had them in the wrong area, but they went from 3, according to my record, down to a 2. Highest rated rider, Cubis, had 440 points, 221st overall for a level 3 training structure. That would seem like a sufficient number to drop to a 2, so it is possible. 11 popularity 3 nations at the start of the playthrough saw an improvement in their popularity. So there was 19 overall. 11 of them had a popularity of 3 at the start of the year. But the majority of those were the popularity 3 nations that had high training structures, as it were. So some of the nations that were really nerfed, they saw development. Many of them getting wins in Grand Tour stages and saw their popularities jump to 6, and in some cases a lot of World Tour stuff where they saw 5s. But with the rebalancing now, the Pop 2, the Pop 3 nations are still grouped together. So if I get a victory at a Pop 2 level requirement, I would unlock a group of nations. But beginning at popularity 4 nations and above, everything above it, there are 38 individual nations that have the popularity of 4 or above now within the database, and all 38 nations will unlock individually. So if I get a popularity 4 boost requirement, I will unlock 1 popularity 4 nation. It's going to be tough to get those 38, but once we get that ball rolling, I think we're going to be able to accumulate more and more rapidly. The popularity thresholds are easy to identify. The training thresholds have been a lot more challenging, and I've been trying to gather data through this playthrough, and I will continue to do so in future seasons to understand that system more closely. The first thing that stands out that I learned here is confirmation that it is a dice roll, just like there is for the popularity. Training boosts are not automatic. The prime example is Slovenia and the world's best rider, Pogačar. Number 1 in the rankings, and Slovenia did not gain a training point. So there is a dice roll involved. However, what I have learned is being in the top 20 of the individual rankings does a lot to boost the odds. Within the top 20 of the individual rankings, there were 14 different nations represented, with a few repetitive nations included in there. But of those 14 nations, 8 of them saw an increase in their training structure, and only 11 nations gained training points. So being in that top 20 makes a huge difference. Seems to increase the odds. With only 3 coming outside of that top 20, I discovered that to get to a popularity 3, you don't even have to crack the top 100, as Latvia gained a point all the way down at 109th, scoring just 728 points. But none of the smallest nations, none of the training 1 nations gained anything to training 2. That's something we're going to try to do this year with 1 or 2 stronger riders, that we might be able to either gain that popularity, right, so we can get that snowball going, but also to gain enough points to see a nation pick up its training structure for next season. For this season, I have started to restructure the staff a bit, and I've followed the snowball method. I did retain 1 Swedish staff member from last season. Eventually he will get replaced, but for now I've stuck with him. But the new hires have all been from nations that are currently unlocked. So I've done that a bit by design, but also a bit by just the simple fact that it saves us money to get staff from smaller nations that are going to be more affordable for us, so that we can invest in other areas. But with 2 new scouts, I decided that a lot of the 1-1 nations, a lot of the nations that we have access to, are in Asia or Africa or Central America. That covers the majority of the existing available pool. And so getting a North African staff member and a Western Asia staff member has opened us up to having scouts that are actually going to be more effective scouting those particular regions. It might give us a little more information going forward. I would love to be able to find somebody coming out of here that we can actually sign straight as a youth and not have to wait for them to already be in the system for a year plus. But of course, the big thing for this season is that we have an almost entirely new team. Just 2 members are left, Zamet and Mabungo, and then after that, it's all new guys. Now, we do have 4 to 5 prospect level guys we hope that are going to develop and be able to contribute at some stage in a year or 2. We then brought in arguably 5, but now really 6, as somebody has leveled up from the time we signed him last year to now. That we really have 6 guys that are ready to contribute now. We don't have a single 70 amongst the team, but we do have high 60s. We do have lots of mid 60s, and even for their worst attributes, like Hopkins, his worst attribute is a 57. Like, that's better than anything we had last year. The team will be a lot more competitive. 337 teams. We were arguably 337th. I didn't compare us to everybody else, but I'm assuming that on paper, we were the weakest team in the world. Our final position, based on the comparison of top 3 riders, had us 196th entering this season. That's a big jump from where we were, but it's also still roughly 200 out of 300 plus. It is way down the rankings, but it is much higher than where we were. But speaking of rankings, the actual team ranking last year, in the end, was 44th place, which is awesome. Got to take that with a grain of salt, as a lot of the points that we picked up for the season came from national championships that were either uncontested, or we scored a lot of points because there wasn't that many riders there, and it wasn't that hard to game the system to at least not be last and finish higher up. Finish 4th, finish 3rd, finish 6th. So most of those points that got us up to 44th were pretty artificial, but I still expect us to do better this year. We're still in small nations, but now instead of having the weakest rider in the nation, we have the best rider in the nation. But that best rider in the nation, or at least for 6 of them, doesn't mean that they're going to go win their national championships. If we still have a 1 versus 8 scenario, the cards are still in the hands of the other 8. But I'm very much looking forward to the new season ahead of us. I've done a lot of work behind the scenes on our snowball. Now I still need to go in and do the work to prep the team for the season to come. The big goal, though, is to have a busier calendar because we want to go for some wins. Low-level stuff, though. We want to get those Pop 2s unlocked and maybe, just maybe, It would be wonderful if we can get a pop 3, but I'm not sure we're going to be there just yet. Getting into those pop 2s will give us at least a few nations that are also training 2, and you can find those riders that are going to get up into those 70s. But I don't see why I couldn't at some stage grab a victory or 2 when you have like 3 guys with a sprint rating of 68 plus. That's a pretty good lead out. That's a pretty good possibility. Some weaker races, that's enough to get a victory. We scored top 10s with guys at, a 50, 52. Depends on the competition though. And if there's still somebody in the mid 70s, we're not going to beat them. But if we have a field of similar riders, we could definitely score some wins this season. For the first time this season, I am investing in facilities, but lightly. We're actually going to have a really good balance this year. I'm still thinking long term, but minor investment for this year. Let's see that balance grow, and then we can go from there. But anyway, I have spent $20,000 on optimization chain processing 1, which is a plus 0.1 on primary attributes for the whole team. And then for 7 riders, our 7 best riders, I have given them high performance tires, so that's 14K total with a plus 0.2 to those same primary attributes for all of them. I was a little concerned coming into this season. I knew I wanted to expand the calendar, but then our calendar was as bare bones as last season. But I've requested invites to lots of low-level races, and here is the feedback. These are races we did not get into, which is the majority of what I asked. However, these are races that we did get into. It's not a huge list, but it is most definitely a list. We have gotten invites to a good amount of races that will help us build out a calendar and get a chance to get victories. We've got a race to get a victory, right? All of those requests came from the first chunk of the year. I really needed to see just what we were going to actually get out of it. And what I'm also liking here is it's spread out, so I'm not having a lot of overlap. I can pick and choose riders. I will get the young riders a chance to race, but there will be times where I kind of want to get all the best riders out there together and see how they perform. We need wins after all, and having the best will give me the best chance at doing that. So obviously the good news is we have more races on the calendar now, but the bad news is only 2 Pop 2 required races got added to the calendar. The rest are all just for those 2 minor nations of Monaco and Liechtenstein that we're looking to unlock, and I think I'm bound to get those 2 wins in this first part of the year. Once I've got that out of the way, it'll be time to change strategy and really focus in on those 1.1 races that would get us the Pop 2 ones, get us going on those. Our first race of the year is the New Zealand Cycle Classic. This is for Monaco or Liechtenstein that we are aiming for with this one, and we opened with a team time trial. I've set an 89 effort. Let's see how long can they hold on to an 89 effort over such a short distance. It's going to burn through that red bar really quick, but they do seem to be hanging on okay, so I'm going to try to push that to a 90. In testing, I found about a 91 is really the maximum you can sustain over a short term, because that burn continues on down the line to those following, not just to those at the front, and you don't get any recovery. So here we're giving about that max effort. I have already adjusted the timing for the best time trialists, the best prologgers, to spend just a little bit more time doing the work. But you can see Abdullah is fading. It only takes 5 riders to make the top, and that's something we're missing out on. I didn't see anybody else besides Abdullah struggling, but yeah, that 90 was a bit too hard, and suddenly I'm down to... Oh, wait, top 4, not top 5, doesn't matter. Funsavith and Sabanda, what's going on with you guys? They can't handle it either. It's weird how that happened very suddenly. I adjusted the effort by 1, and they went from just fine to, oops, they're done in like 1.5K. Hopkins and Walters have the pace, but they are leaving behind the 2 that do not. So I'm going to back off with those 2 and hope that these guys can hang on. No, Sabanda and Funsavith are going to end up setting our time. Third so far, just 30 seconds down. No win yet, but I mean, come on. First try. Stage 2, and the breakaway was caught much too early, so we're seeing a very aggressive field at the moment. Riders trying to take late breakaways, and the pack chasing them down. I'm really liking my chances today for 2 reasons. One, I lucked out. It's early January, and I set everybody to 80 to 90% for their preseason fitness levels. They're all still in that 80 to 90%. In fact, the whole team's in the 80, 85 range. So a lot of them are carrying -1s and -2s throughout this race because of the low fitness levels. Yet, 3 riders have a positive race day condition, including 2 riders with a +4. This is a good draw. This is a very good draw compared to what it could be. Also, the second thing that I like about this one, as I'm going to go ahead and pause this here in just a moment to set up my train and get things moving, I like the profile. It's been flat all stage long. Everybody is fully rested. It's a small field of 72. I can't see it just there, but if you look at the bottom, there you go, you can see it. 1.8 kilometer climb. Average is 3.3%, but it does have a max of 8% in that final kilometer, just before the finish line. So it's not just down to a sprinter. Punchiness is going to be a factor in this finish, and I'm going to have to take that into account in my lead out, in my preparation. Sabanda is definitely going to be the guy to go first. I should probably reset everybody. Abdullah and Food Sabbath, how are we doing on flat ratings for those two? Food Sabbath a little bit weaker. So Regatta is pretty punchy, and Walters is punchy and capable of a sprint today. So I'm going to try to get Regatta to kind of handle the climb and lead out Walters for the final 500 meters with a late push there, and Hopkins getting us going in strong just prior to that at 99 effort. We'll see if it works out, but that's the plan. We are not the favorites for a race such as this. The favorite, they based it on sprinters, and the favorite sprinter is a 74 sprint guy. But both, or 2 of my sprinters anyway, have made the top 10 list of favorites for the day. So we are definitely up there. And we are in with a chance of doing something, as we are down to just 7K left in this one from Sabbath, giving us that nice strong lead out, keeping us to the front. What is Walters doing out of position there? Okay, on to Abdullah, 5.6K. We got some other teams coming along. What the heck, Abdullah? Where you been, bud? Wow, that was not cool. I have no idea what he was doing way out of position there, but now with 4K to go, we are not in the good, strong position that we were in moments ago. And Abdullah is trying to follow Hopkins, but Hopkins is following Abdullah. Come on, buddy. Wow, okay. This is really unfortunate here. Abdullah is glitching and bad. Onto Hopkins, 1.5K, but we have lost that prime position in a race that was looking like we could win, and instead we are coming from behind, and yeah, that was rough. That was unfortunate.
He really had to fight for that one. A great sprint finish.
Stage 3, regular sprint stage, regular opportunity, and I do have those couple capable sprinters, but we do not have the great draw today. -5 for Walters, who is probably the best one of the group, or at least he and Hopkins are very, very close to one another. So we ride for Hopkins and Walters. Well, he still needs to be part of the process, but we're bumping him up the line. Abdullah behind him. Let's hope Abdullah does not have some sort of bug issue this time. 7K to go. We're going to start to speed things up and move on to Sabanda. Now there is traffic, and I thought that that's all that happened with Abdullah the first time, was we had traffic.
The finish line is getting close. The riders just passed the 5 kilometers road sign.
On a regatta. Gonna move down that line. Into those three guys here. Regatta has a little bit of acceleration. Let's get him going. On to Walters, 2K out. Walters goes into the traffic instead of away from it, though. On to Abdullah. And Hopkins, and no. Abdullah has some pace, but that was not it right there. Poor lead out. Definitely held us back. There are definitely stronger sprinters than what we have, but positioning matters, and we were not able to supply a good position on that particular lead out. I think the biggest problem was going straight into traffic. Stage 4 of 5, and we're down to 35 riders left in the peloton, and I have just 3, and we're getting this on a regular basis. Lots of minor attacks. It's going to be a tough one to finish off, but I do have 2 riders still capable of putting in something for this finish, and Walters is going to have to lead out Abdullah, who is going to gel up right now. Regatta is still here, at least providing protection, hanging on with this last group. It's been a tough stage. It's been an aggressive stage, and we're down to 4K. I would like to do the lead out right now, but we do not have the extra stamina on board. We're going to have to really kind of save it for the last second here with Walters to lead out Abdullah, as they just don't have enough to go far. I don't think this is going to be our day based on the energy we have left. There are some strong riders in the field. There's a 77 puncher who is the favorite for this one, and with this sort of support, 2.5K, I think all we can do now is protect and hang on as best we can. Abdullah just hanging onto the wheel.
The riders are going through a very tough portion with percentages above 10%.
And he's out of energy inside the final kilometer, so no, not today. I actually thought we I thought there was a pretty good chance that we were going to have that win by now, and here we are, struggling to compete with the field. We're struggling to get the top 10s right now. At just over 50 kilometers, this is a very, very short stage, and they're still fighting over the breakaway at this point. The breakaway of 3, the most established of it, has already been reeled in, and we're now looking at just 13 kilometers left. Red bar's gone for Sabanda, but I'm going to go ahead and push on with him for a little while longer because I needed to get control. I needed to get out front early. Abdullah, let's go ahead and gel. We'll get him moving fairly soon. We're at 11.8. Let's go about a 97 with him and get Sabanda back on the wheel here. This is going to be a really tough stage, I think, with how short it is. Everybody else is going to be fresh, and getting that front position is tough. But trying to get started a little earlier on this, get out front and hold out front. We'll see. Right now it's working. Right now we are out front. Walters is the guy we're riding for today. He and Hopkins are pretty neutral on their race day conditions. Inside the final 6 kilometers, this is it. But you can see now the other teams are coming up, and a Regatta, even with a +4, he's still only got a 67 flat rating. So he's only given us so much, and we're down to our last 2 guys after this one, which means Hopkins is going to have to go on a little bit longer than would be expected. 3.4K, and we're on to our lead out guy. Yeah, it's a bit early for that. It's a bit early for that. 2.6K. 2K. Hopkins, we're going to come around this corner and start sprinting. 1.2, it's a little early for Walters, but it was a decent lead out. He just does not have the same pace as others. Just doesn't have that pace, no. He still didn't even crack the top 10. It's a 12th place. Holy crap, what we did in that first couple episodes were just straight up miracles. But this was a deeper, stronger field than most, if not all, of the races we had last year, besides really last episode where we got into higher level races. That field was barely better than this field. There will be easier races in terms of the overall standings. Abdullah in 24th was our highest place finisher. Not a great showing for our first run. Definitely competitive, but definitely not doing enough. It's Going to take some work to get those wins. But that's going to do it for this episode on Decathlon Gamer. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Have a good one. Be safe out there. Bye for now.